but then like the royal flush is like the high ranking card.
Yeah, it's kind of like a trick question almost, because it is technically a straight flush. They just wanted to be fancy because it's like the best straight flush.
Yep.
It's like kind of like calling like a pocket pair, you know, like calling like aces like the just like I don't maybe it's different, but yeah, it's just kind of being a little fancy. It's basically the same thing.
But
it's the best straight flush you can get.
Right, but obviously the best one is the royal flush because it's like the high ranking cards, so it's better than a straight flush, correct?
But if you ever get a straight flush and lose, you're just having a really bad day. So
imagine.
yeah. At that point, I wouldn't really worry about what the best straight flush is. If you have one, you're in pretty good shape.
I've done that once in my career where I had the royal flush and then someone had the lower straight flush, and it's probably not only has it been done once in my career, but I would be willing to bet that maybe like Kenny Max and Steve and even DMC have never had that happen. It was so rare.
The royal flush versus a lower straight flush?
Four card. Yeah, it was, I had ace of diamonds and the board was like king, queen, 10, jack, 4 diamonds with the 9 of diamonds.
I've played my entire adult life and a lot, and I've never seen that. Nothing close to that. The worst cooler I've seen is probably like quads over quads or straight flush over quads, like that sort of thing. But if you have a straight flush and lose, you're just having a really, really bad day.
Yeah. But so, I mean, that's good because that one question that one thing that you were kind of not sure about is actually just, you know, a simple or that's kind of a trick question. So you did get it, you know, because a royal flush is a straight flush, but a straight flush is not a royal flush. You understand?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like but it's just the queen, the king, the best possible hand in poker, so they wanted to be fancy with it. But I actually wrote down a few kind of like topics I guess we could just kind of brush over. But did you want like me to no, I don't know if I call them DMT. Maybe I did, but regardless, do you have anything that you would like me to like kind of like brush over from like last week? Like, do you want me to talk about, you know, just do you need a refresher course basically?
No, I don't think so. I think like do what you think is best, because I'm like at this point I'm kind of like trying to figure out what I need to learn too. You know what I mean? So like I'm sure there's gonna be new things and new strategies that you're gonna talk about that I'm like, oh, that's new. I wouldn't know that. So like right now I'm good. Like
okay, great.
What you taught us before, yeah.
That's cool. So, I guess I'm gonna actually just start off by going. I kind of want to get that poker chart up again, where like you just saw, you know, like the pre-flop hands. Yeah. So real quick, I'm just gonna share that, and because that's one thing I kind of wanted to talk a lot about, because I think. Funny enough, I did a podcast with Shawnee yesterday, and I was trying to explain a hand to her, and she kind of like reverse engineered it from like the last card, the river. And there's kind of and what I realized to explain to her was there's like kind of a disconnect in the way that you think about pre-flop hands and post-flop hands. So let's just go here. I think that should be good. Yeah. So is this good for everyone?
I can see.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
So basically here, this is just like, hey, these are hands, you know, that you can play, and then like there are these kind of like you know, this is like the button, and this is like the cutoff, which is one off the button, and the whole thing is that everything changes post flop. So you remember like how aces is the best hand in poker?
Yeah.
Like it's not the best hand in poker once you hit a flop. You know, like I mean it can be, but like when the board comes out like deuce 3-4, like it's like 5-6 is now the best hand. So you're kind of like always changing what the best hand is, and I'm just trying to, you know, like it's called the range essentially, or sorry, like that's called the nuts. Did we use that term last week? I mean, maybe we did. Okay, so
maybe not.
She's heard me say that like 500 times and has no idea why I say it. So
yeah, it's basically like you say like that's the shit, or that's the best, or oh man, that's the nuts. Like it's the same thing. It's like basically in the nuts is 5-6 suited there. The best possible hands, we would say that's the nut straight. And you kind of work down from that when you're trying to figure out what someone's hand is. And funny enough, there was not the term for figuring out what's possibly in someone else's like hands, like in what their two cards are, is called the range. But that term was not like coined until like 2006 maybe. Like one day, like cash game players start saying, oh, that's like we have to range them, we have to figure out what's in the range. And it's like, because the thing is that a lot of poker players, especially new ones, will be like, oh, I put them on queens, or I put them on, you know, jack 10 or something. But like the elite players, the higher level players, they say this is a possible hand that they can have. And very rarely do they just specifically say, I mean, actually, that's where they are kind of elite, where they actually figure out like, oh, this guy really, I've seen this enough that I actually think this person has one specific hand. But almost always it's a range. It's a broad, like kind of stroke of what everyone can have. And if you look kind of at the, you know, these pre-flop ranges, you know, this will be like, okay, well, like, so for instance, and I don't know, like, to what extent you kind of understand, like, you know, like the coloring. But like basically white is saying, hey, we're not playing these hands. It's just not in, you know, the range. I know I'm going to keep saying the range a lot, but it's just kind of like, it is a term that like, I didn't learn poker with that term. It would have been a lot more helpful because we were all just like, oh, he's got ace-8 here. And it's like, no, that doesn't, that's not logic. That's not like there's no like, there's nothing to kind of build on that. You're just like hoping, you know? So here you can kind of just see like, all right, like, I don't know what specifically this like is kind of referring to. Like I just kind of picked up like a random one, but like if from like certain positions, I actually should, unfortunately I thought I bookmarked. Oh, Max, do we have the ones from last week? Because I thought I bookmarked them on my browser, but I did not. So they're probably.
I pinned them here. Let me see if I can find them. I'm on my phone. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I'm scrolling real quick. I know that there are like you did. Okay.
Pinned messages. Yeah, I have them right here. Want me to send them to you? If you click the pin in training sessions up top next to the like notification settings. Yeah.
I just reposted them in training sessions for you guys.
Cool. Thank you very much. So basically, like we'll pull this one up, which should be what you're seeing. Let's just double check. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So like here, it's not as like there aren't as many colors, but it's like this is just saying like, hey, like from this position, you fold the gray and you raise, or you would shove in this case, like the yellow or something. And like these are all ranges. Everything is a range. And now this is only pre-flop. Because remember, when you go post-flop, like things all change. Card player hand match, or because like it's funny that this thing's been around for so long, but
I used to use this when I was like 14, bro.
But it's still the best. Like it's just such a good tool. and it's like, okay, so real quick, let's just go.
I swear to God, I used to use this so many years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I used it all the way up until probably like 6 months ago when I got Pro Poker Tools. Like,
yeah. It's so helpful. So Farah.
Yeah.
What would be the nuts here?
The nuts. Oh boy.
So like, what's
that's
the
a
best
great swap.
possible hand you can think of? Like,
The
what
best
two
possible hand.
cards can you have in your hand that would make the best possible 5-card hand?
King, queen, or yeah, king and queen.
Yes.
Did I do it right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Nailed it.
right. Now, for extra credit,
Oh boy.
this is a little more complicated. Which king queen? Oh, can you put that back?
Oh, sorry. I saw something. I had to click.
It's all
on
good. It's all good. Which
I got,
king,
like-
which king queen would be best here? And
Of
what?
the suits.
Yeah, what suits?
This is to Farah, right?
Yeah. So Farah, I'll talk through this a bit. So let's say I had king queen of clubs here, right? If I have king queen of clubs, not only do I have the best possible hand right now, I have a redraw, which basically means if someone happens, to like turn a better hand, which in this case would be very, very, very difficult, and I can't really figure out how that would happen, we can still have a club to hit a flush. Or specifically, ace of clubs would make a royal flush here, right?
Right.
So that's something to consider as well. Not only does king queen the best hand, there's like some king queens could theoretically be better than others. Now, if we one more thing, if we get to the end of the hand and we had king queen of clubs and someone else has a different king queen, we chop the hand. We have the same hand,
Which is a split, chop, split. Yeah, it's like it's basically the same thing.
We tie. Basically.
Even if the 9 is hearts, or like,
yeah, even if you're like closer to a flush or something, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So you have technically the more like similar cards than whoever you're playing, you win that round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to do one more thing, and then I want to go back to the pre-flop thing or pre-flop post-flop thing. So let's say the turn here is a jack of diamonds, and you still have king queen of clubs. Well, what is the nuts now?
Wait. Would it be? Would it be another? If like, would it be a jack?
Well, yeah, but it'd be the last two jacks in the deck.
Right. Yeah.
But what's interesting, and this is why poker is so dynamic, and why poker is such a complicated game, because we go to pre-flop, aces is the best hand. We go to post-flop, now king queen of clubs or any king queen is the best hand. Now we're on the turn, and jacks are now the best hand. But not only jacks are the best hand, any combination of jack 10, jack 9, 10s, 9s are the best hand. So king queens went from being the nuts, the best possible hand you can have, to all of a sudden being like, I think that's probably like the 7th or 8th nuts now.
Right.
Which you don't even really call it the 7th nuts at that point. It's just like, yeah, like there were 7 better hands than me or whatever. So it's just important to realize that, because you kind of have, this is why being fluid in poker and always kind of changing like how you play and how you react is very important, because like someone who has jack 10 can go from being way, way, way behind to having king queen completely dead to rights.
Right. Yeah.
And then like there's funny things that can happen also sometimes. And this isn't that relevant, but just kind of like for like the sake of it all, it's like funny when it comes like that. Like it goes like you start like king queen of clubs. You know what's crazy about this kind of hand? By the end of actually this is actually relevant, because for you, let's say that you had like, okay, I have to do this visibly or visually. So let's say there's deuces and there's king queen. Like, okay, so look here. We'll actually go pre-flop real quick. I'll just go back. So before the flop, you can see that the math here. Can you see that? Because it's kind of small.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like basically a flip. And then the flop comes down, and king queen has 97% almost. Like, and half the time, it's so basically two deuces can win 2% of the time, and 1% is a chop. So like deuces has no shot. And granted, this isn't going to happen very often, but it is relevant because like this kind of shows how you have to be very dynamic and always on your toes. Look at that turn. That single turn, deuces went up by 7%. Because now there is it's actually kind of crazy. Well, yeah, so wow, that's actually kind of crazy to me. I didn't know it's that high. What do you think about that, guys? Like, well, it actually makes sense because it's only like 1 in 11. But like basically now deuces can hit a jack because it's sharing it, or it can hit a deuce. And now I'll just go to the river and we have a jack again, and it wins because, like, do you understand? Like, yeah. So it's kind of crazy how this can happen. Granted, this isn't going to happen that often. We saw that literally twos had like a 50-1 chance of, 4-1 chance of actually even winning the hand on the flop. But like, it does happen. And it's just kind of crazy to show how it all changes so rapidly.
So like pre-flop, right? If you had deuces, would you have folded or would you have like kept going pre-flop? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally you're not going to be folding either of these hands when you have remember what Shani said about the shopping bag, or like her budget. Yeah. Like, if you have a good budget, you're not really going to be folding them, but like it really does depend on like your position and stuff, cuz like any pair can hit
pair, that's right.
Yeah. So like let's just for what you're saying, let's say you have aces and deuces, and then like the flop comes like, all right, it's like 9, 8, 7, or we'll just make a random flop. So it's not like, okay, cool. Look at this advantage.
Right.
But then look what happens when it's like 9, 8, and then you hit the 2. It just literally hitting one of your 2 outs swings it so fast. So because you can hit one of those 2 outs, they call it kind of like it's called set mining. And when you hit, it's a set. A 3 of a kind where you have 2 in the hand is a set. I know it's kind of like a lot of like lingo I'm throwing at you.
No, I understand it. I understand it.
And then like funny enough, like this is considered trips. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
It's funny how many times, like, not even casual players, but like amateur players who've been playing for a long time will just be like, oh, I have a set. Like, I can't tell you. I'm sure, Kenny or Max or Steve can say that they've definitely heard that. But this is not a set. That's trips. So I just kind of wanted to show you like why it's so relevant to like why like pairs are good. And then king queen is just like a good hand because it's kind of flexible, if that makes sense. Right. Like you're basically like, yep, I can hit a straight, I can hit a flush, I can hit a king, I can hit a queen. And that's cool. Like if you like, these hands are going to be pretty close like pre-flop, but like you'd much rather have king queen suited than deuces almost most of the time, because like do you know what an overcard is?
No.
Well, try to just like kind of like break down the words, because a lot of these terms are kind of simple, and take a guess.
Overcard. I have no idea. Like,
Okay. I know. Yeah, that's literally how all poker lingo is. It's like so simple, but you just like,
But it's like,
yeah, until it's explained, you're like, what? Basically, overcard is literally like, let's say you have fives.
mhm.
The flop here, if it goes like 4-3 deuce, there are no overcards. There are undercards. If it goes king queen or like this, there are 3 overcards to your hand.
Oh, okay. So cards that are bigger than what you have in your hand.
Yeah, cards that are over your hand. So that's kind of, I'm just explaining why it's tough to have like deuces are a good hand, but it's much better when you're like all in with them, when you're forced all in with them, than like when you're trying to play. Because like look at this situation. It comes 9 ace 4. Like king, you'd rather have king queen here. It's not a great spot for either hand, but like you can at least like it's going to be tough for you to there's always 3 overcards to any card with deuces, even though deuces is 70% win, like you can't see the other person's cards.
Right.
So this whole thing was just for me to kind of like explain to you pre-flop versus post-flop. And I feel like I did a decent job.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then like, this is where like the range kind of comes back in, because pre-flop, the range is all of this. Every single, like, this is what you're supposed to play. It's not necessarily saying that you're going to play it. Like some people just might decide to play 8-5 offsuit. I've seen everything. I've seen it all. I've seen people play and and even this year in the World Series main event, there was some guy playing the worst hand in poker, 3 deuce offsuit, and calling like multiple raises with it, multiple re-raises with it. Like we've seen it all. Anything is possible. So you generally try to give them, the benefit of the doubt for how good they're playing, but it's not always going to work out. Like, kind of they're always going to show their hand, like no pun intended, but like for like doing no casual player is really going to have this chart down,
Right.
So but that's the pre-flop, and then you go post-flop and it's just like you throw out like so many hands. Like, all right, think about this one. Let's say that actually, like, let's say you have aces here. Aces went from being the best hand in all of poker to being like look at this. Literally, if you have like pocket fours here, like fours is 42% against it, just because aces don't have a diamond. So it's like, I mean, you can go from being such a huge favorite to just being completely almost dead here. And it's like, it just is really crazy to me that that's how poker can be sometimes. And
I think that's what the draw of it is, though.
Yeah, because like you want your people get their aces cracked and stuff. And there are some boards like, and maybe like Max or Kenny can chime in here. Like there are some boards where you get aces and you're just like, I don't want to put another dime in the pot. And I feel like this is one of those boards. Like if you look and it's like, all right, there's king jack there, and then someone has like, like some people like dude has like deuces or whatever, and then there are 4 ways, and then someone just has like 9, 8, like or 9, like I don't know, whatever it is. So it doesn't even really. It could just be like this again. Like aces is lucky like to get to the river, but aces can't really feel good about any type of aggressive action.
Over here, yeah.
Like it's like everything has equity. Like if you just heads up, deuces have equity.
Or like if the board's like king X and you have aces, that's one too, something like that.
It's like, okay, cool. You're, and it's like king 5. It's so hard to, but in these situations, you can play a little bit with aces. You're kind of like tiptoeing.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm gonna bet a couple times, maybe you'll call, but like that third bet, like, maybe I'll check here. Maybe I'll give you a little more credit than I initially thought. So I kind of just wanted to talk about the pre-flop versus post-flop thing. I mean, I literally took up a half an hour doing that. And, we could really talk more, but I'd love to hear if you have any questions at the moment.
No, I think I understand this. Yeah, I think you did well over here. So keep it going.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. So yeah, and I think it's just more, this is just like me hammering the range. And it's like, actually, I think maybe what we could do real quick is just like, I was gonna just be like, let's like go through some boards again and like see like what the best like this one. It's like, this one's like a crazy board because like there are so many flushes and then there's so many straights and we're not even getting to anything that is paired.
Right.
So it's like, to figure someone's range this is why I think range is kind of started. Like to just be like, oh, I put you on 8-7 of spades, or like I thought you had 2 pair there, is just delusional because there's so many hands that are going to be played aggressively here, like a straight, 2 pair, sets, or flush. So because of that, because of boards like this, you really do have to have a you just have to have a range. And actually, this is kind of what I wanted to hammer down. So picture that we start with all these hands. It's essentially like you're crossing them off on it's like the periodic table of poker, but you're essentially like
you're crossing them off like a game of Clue, like
exactly. So like if someone doesn't raise pre-flop, like if you raise and then someone just like calls you and doesn't make another aggressive, you can kind of assume they don't have aces, and you can probably assume they don't have kings either. Occasionally they'll have those. So it's like there are spots where you can just be like, well, here, like let's say that the board's like just like that or something, and you'd be like, well, like I can probably assume, or I can assume that they don't have aces because they didn't re-raise me pre-flop. You don't 100% know, but you can't really, but that's poker. It's taking like all these things and estimating, assuming, it's probably true that they don't have aces here. So it's interesting because there are some situations where you can literally remove some of the best hands from poker. That's a little more high level, but one thing I kind of wanted to just go through real quick is like we start with these hands, and let's say there was a raise from early position, and then you called an early position. So that's like well, actually, I think I should have that one. Let me find it. Yeah, it was this one. So it's just like you're Carol, and then I'm Fred or whatever. You raise and I call, and it's like we have strong ranges because remember we still have like 7 other people left to go.
Right.
And going back to that, like now, like the flop comes Jack, Ace. It honestly kind of doesn't matter, but like because we're in early position, like there's a ton of these hands that are now removed. So we can already start with we can already narrow this stuff down. And you can be like, oh, well, I know like they probably don't have like certain, like in this spot, given where we were, And I'm just kind of like, it's maybe it's a little getting like a little complicated, but we can know that I will never ever be calling with like a Jack 10 offsuit here. So I'll always be suited if I have my hand, if I am even calling. So it's like you can take out those hands from my range, which ends up being fairly relevant. And then this is where Shawnee, I'll go actually to her example because we Kenny and Max and Steve were talking about the Matt Affleck hand with Duhamel. Where basically the board was, let me just think about it real quick. It was 10, 9, 7. And so and there was a lot of pre-flop re-raising going on, Farrah. So the whole thing was like Shawnee, when we got to the river, it was like, the board was like it was something that was like, it was like this. That was the river. And like I think this was the board. And like Shawnee was like, well, like shouldn't and so what ended up happening was, let me reverse engineer this a little bit. So this is the board that kind of came out. And basically the two hands were this one, I'll go here, jacks and jacks, and then aces and aces. And jacks ended up winning this hand. So, but like when I was telling her this hand, because of the pre-flop action, when I was telling her this hand, she was like, well, like, shouldn't aces not be like playing like very aggressively here? And then especially with like this or like this turn. And I was like, yeah, like aces doesn't feel that good here, because like there's a lot of hands that have outs.
Right.
But the thing that she was, where the disconnect came, and this is where I think it'll be like kind of a light bulb for you, is she was kind of reverse engineering it, being like, well, they can have like Jack 8. And it's like, she's not wrong that someone who plays poker can have Jack 8 like in this situation, which would be the nut. And they could have all these other hands. However, because of the pre-flop re-raising going on and all of that action, they literally should never have Jack 8 there. They should never have 10-9, 7-9, Queen 9, any of those hands. So the board kind of like doesn't matter as much in those situations. So it's funny because you reverse engineer it trying to be like, oh, they can have Jack 8. But once you realize they cannot because of what they did pre-flop, that's when like poker really kind of like takes like you really like when you get used to that and you ask yourself in the hand, oh wait, they can't have that here. Like that's like such a light bulb kind of eureka moment. And it's easy for me to tell you to do that, but it's a lot harder to actually go through the motion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In the moment. I mean, it took a long time to just remind myself to ask that sometimes. So, I mean, yeah, Kenny and Max, if you guys have anything you wanted to kind of just add to this, why maybe take a breath.
Well, first off, good job. I definitely think that you're doing a good job covering what we call like board texture. Like there's different types of board textures, and I definitely think some of them are more innocent than others. This one not being super innocent, as Adam explained pretty well. This is just something that you get a feel for as you see more and more hands, and your sixth sense can generally tell you if that was a bad card or not once you've played enough. I think me knowing you and knowing that you learn interactively, I think it'd be really good for us to like find a way to actually run some hands, if not today, like in a future session. And I think that'd be really helpful for you. I don't know what
Yeah, for sure.
on that.
Yeah, I think that would be good if we like kind of set it up like for the next one.
Yeah.
And I think Shawnee will be in the next one too, so we could almost have like a simulated table going on where we can just kind of. There's this thing called I forget what it's like, poker out loud, where it's basically like everyone's articulating their own thoughts as they're playing their hands. And you're like kind of watching it from as like the viewer, and like we can kind of do something like that because we'll be able to like talk about what you did, what you didn't, like after the fact.
No, that would be good because Kenny's definitely right. I definitely learn by like practicing and stuff too. So
yeah, because I mean, I think we all do because it's so hard to remember everything that you're doing when you're not really doing too much of it, or even when you are doing it.
Right.
A lot of information.
And I think this is good though because like there's a lot to poker that than just like straight playing, that I think you need to learn like the nuances and stuff to it. So this is good too. So a mixture of both is good.
Yeah. So like and I agree, but the crazy. Man, I like should have just gone with what I thought, but then I was like, no, I have to agree with you, and now I just kind of forgot my thought.
Well, you remember that I think it'd be really interesting if we ran that simulated table, maybe on Club GG. And what we can do, Adam, is maybe play for like 20 minutes and record it, and then maybe we can play back the recording as a group. And then talk through some of the hands, and
that's a great idea. I would love that because we can just because breaking down the hands and showing like, hey, this is like something that you should do, or this is something you did wrong, or whatever it is, or something you did right. It's just so helpful for the person that's coaching and also the person that you're playing.
Right.
I think that sounds like a lot of fun. And. It's like it's just a good experiment. But I did want to kind of talk about another aspect of poker, which is like your raise size. And so like when you're doing this, the whole thing again, you generally, or when you're here, you kind of want to, I guess the way I would describe it is like, okay, so there's one and then there's two in the pot, and sometimes there's a little more because of antes, but like you don't want to just going back from last week, you remember like the whole point of poker is like the very simple point of it is just to win what's in the pot.
Right.
And when you do not make a raise, you can't win what's in the pot until the flop. So like if you call pre-flop, that is not an aggressive range. That is that's not an aggressive movement. That is a passive movement. Right. So it's a passive action. So you're going to force Alice probably in because Alice is getting such a good pot odds. Remember, like great price. And Bob will just check because Bob's like, cool, I have 7-4 offsuit. Like, I don't want to play. I'll see the flop. So like you want to be making aggressive moves pre-flop generally. You don't always it's different post-flop, but pre-flop, if you're gonna raise, or we call open, like you're gonna open the pot, you're the first one in there, you want to make it at least 2 times the big blind. Sorry, this is throwing me off, but it's half a big blind and 1 big blind, not one, but it's like $1, $2. So you'd want to make it like so what's weird is that like you don't really want to make it 2 times the big blind. You kind of want to make it like something where Bob isn't getting as good a price, but also you generally don't want to make it bigger than 3 times big blind either. So the whole thing is like let me just get this out of the way. You generally want to be within 2 to 3 times the big blind, like basically always. There's a few other times where you don't, but that's just like but that's not relevant right now. But the whole thing is that this is only when you're like not going all in. like when you have like decent chips and stuff. So like, let's say you have 100 big blinds in your budget, you would probably raise 2.5 to 3 times the big blind, and it's fine. Because like you want to like we have a lot more to work with, you know. You want to kind of build the pot. But when you have 20 big blinds, you probably want to make it 2 times the big blind or 2.1 times the big blind, because you have less to work with. And you don't want, if you have to fold, you don't want to have to like just you don't want to just keep losing, if that makes sense. Like you don't want to just like fold off your stack and stuff.
Right. So
now going back to why it's 2 to 3 times big blind generally, and it's funny because you'll this is a common mistake you'll see a lot of amateurs make, where all of a sudden they just like get aces and they just go like 10 times the big blind, and like after they'll show aces like, look at me, I had this, and you're like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, I gotta protect so you don't suck out on me. You don't by the way, sucking out is a term for having bad luck happen to you. So yeah. But so yeah, I mean, like the thing is that all that really happens when you make it like a certain size that's like kind of not enticing to Bob or Alice or Jim, who's on the button, is they just fold and they wait for good hands, if that makes sense.
Right.
So like, if you're gonna make it like 5 times big blind with ace king, like no one's gonna play, and they're just gonna wait until they have a good hand, and then they're gonna play, and you're sweet, I'm getting some action here, but it's bad action, like because they're just waiting for their good hands. Right. So you generally, but like it gets a little weird because like you don't always want to get called either. So like that's why, you know, like raising 2 times big blind when you're 100 big blinds deep isn't great either, because it's such a low cost to Bob or Jim to just call on the button. So generally you want to make it like somewhere in between there, depending on like what your stack size, like 2.5 to 3 times when you're big stack, and then lower than 2.5 when you're like, you know, getting shorter. Yeah. And then the last thing about that is, if you do raise, you keep your range the entire, like you don't base what you're raising based on what your hand is. Does that make sense? Kind of like the ace thing that I was saying, where like that guy's like, I made it 10 times there and king 5 times, you know? You don't do that. It should just be on what like what you think like the range should make it. And every hand in that position should make it the same size, because eventually you'll just give something off by doing that. And that's kind of pre-flop, or that's kind of like just understanding how to raise.
No, that was definitely one of my questions, like how much did they raise and when and stuff. So that was helpful for sure.
Great. There is one more thing, like, and this is kind of what I put on the back burner, was like, let's say that Carol decides that they want to see the flop, but they don't raise, they call. So they put 1 big blind in there. You want to make the raise bigger now, because there's one more person that you like. Let's say you're Sally, all the way in the hijack, 2 from the button. You want to make it like 4 times the big blind or 3.5, and because like you don't really want, because like let's say you have like aces or something, and in this situation, like when it goes on, if like Alice or Jim call, like then Bob call and Carol calls, now you're like 4 ways, you know, 5 ways sometimes. And like you don't want to, if let's say Carol limps or calls, and Sally, you make it 2 times the big blind, like that's the pot odds for every single player is just too cheap. Like Carol can call any cards in the deck and be fine. So it's very important to just remember, like, I think the rule of thumb is for every person that limps, you just raise it one times. Like maybe, sometimes you can like edge a little bit. Like if it's like, maybe it's 0.75 times big blind or but I generally, if it's like, someone limped and I was going to make it 3 times big blind, I make it 4 times. And
get it. Okay.
It's kind of like a simple way to go, but I would say that obviously everything changes once you get shorter. But like still, most of the time, especially if you're playing like cash games and stuff, you will be on the deeper end of the spectrum, like playing with more big blinds.
Adam, convince her to play our weekly tournaments.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
she's nervous.
I mean, I think you should. Why? So you could just come up, like, you can make your own name. So maybe, people only know that you're doing well once, you go on a run. Also, I think there's a lot of people in there who are just casual players. Maybe there's like, some of us, but like if you knock us out, the pros, you get a bounty, and you win something. And it's just a fun event. We get in the Discord. We're doing what we're doing right now, where we just go on the voice channel and we just yik yak and chat. And I don't know why I said yik yak, because I've never said that in my life. So
I can do it. I'm gonna make up a name.
Yeah, make up a name. Just play like the Wednesday or play the Friday, whichever one's more convenient for you. Mm-hmm. And come in the voice chat, and we're all just kind of kicking it, just chilling for the most part.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. How do I get in this though? Like, is there like a website or something like that you guys use?
I'll get you set up. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
There you go.
It's an app on your phone.
Yeah.
Okay. This is great. Like, I feel like I'm like understanding the game more, and like I'm getting more excited to play and stuff. So yeah, I'll try it.
That's great. I mean, I like this, and it does seem like you're understanding what is being said. That said, I'm not gonna lie, the amount of people that I've like helped, and then they're like, I get it, I'm gonna go do it, and then the first thing I see them do is like something that was like so against what I was saying completely. We're all gonna make mistakes, but it's
gonna happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, but it is funny. I've seen some that just like, I was like, I don't know if they took in anything that I just said. They just said yes the entire time. But I don't believe that's you. I think you're getting some good knowledge here, and you're gonna be ready to go on Wednesday.
For sure. This is great.
Great. And I guess did you guys want to say anything as we wrap up?
Definitely should do more of these.
I'm glad you like it. I appreciate it.
There, I think we're gonna do these like on the weekends. Is that right, good. Adam?
Well, I think we're doing the next one's gonna be on Thursday. And then maybe we'll try to do a Thursday. I don't know. We'll do a Thursday one. We'll see how it goes, and then maybe we'll do a Saturday one as well.
If you guys want to try anything for like newbies and whatever, and you need a guinea pig, definitely let me know, and I can help out whatever.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we started this little like chat room called Cubs Cavern. So just like in here, which is just kind of like, hey, the Cubs, we gotta get these Cubs grown and ready to take on the jungle of poker.
For sure. Let me go look. Let me see.
Kenny G joined.
Where's that? Oh, here. I see it.
Yeah. So we'll try, we're gonna do a little more in, just I don't know, it's a fun little idea. I think shout out Slammer for coming up with the phrase. And yeah, if you ever have a question, just like a basic poker question and stuff, like just put it in there and we'll eventually get to it. Someone will get to it.
Sounds good. I will.
And I mean, I feel like that was like a good, that was pretty good. I could try to think of some, see if there's some other stuff. But I thought that those were like two very good kind of concepts to just hammer in. One thing I guess I could do. Do you understand the concept of re-raising? And then we'll wrap after this.
Re-raising. Well, I think, but if you want to explain it, I would not say no to that. So
basically, it's just like, you raise. Like, remember, you open with a hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone's like, I have a better hand. Like, essentially, that's what they're saying in these situations. Like
if you re-raise, got it.
Yeah, like if you look like, oh, I got aces, I got kings, I got queens. Like, I'm gonna re-raise. Also, what ended up kind of becoming a thing in like the later years of poker was like they could just be like, I don't believe they have like a very good hand, so I'm gonna re-raise with like Jack 8 suited or something. Like a random hand that's just like, it's okay post flop, but you can't really call it pre flop. But you also like, it's like kind of like, think of like when you just think someone's full of it, but like you don't have the hand to like combat them. You're like, oh, I think they're bluffing, but you have like 10-5 suited or something. Like,
right.
So essentially you think they're bluffing, and then but you also picked up the hand to like try to beat them, if that makes sense. Right. Like, there's two things that have to happen when there's someone bluffing. You have to have a hand better than them.
Right.
Like pretty much, and you have to like actually try to make some sort of move, like to like, yeah, you can think they're bluffing, but you also need to have the hand. But generally it's a very aggressive act. The re-raise should be done very kind of seldomly, I'd say, when you're starting out. Like, you're either doing it when you're going all in. I mean, you're like, it's very simple. Like, I have 15 big blinds. Someone raised. I have ace queen or ace king. Like, I should go all in because it's a good hand. There's other things you can do, but generally you just kind of keep it simple when you're starting out. And like, but like, if you're 100 big blinds deep, you want to re-raise because you want to, like, it's kind of like that thing where I said about making aces 10 times a big blind. Like, if someone makes it 3 times a big blind and you have 100 big blinds in front of you and you go all in for 100 big blinds, right? They are not going to continue very much. So you have to entice them. It's all about kind of, it's weird because you want to entice players. You want to find the fine line of enticing them, but also giving them room to fold. Because like, if you don't give them room to fold, they never fold, and then like you end up just losing a lot of hands because they just put in action when, like, you put in chips when they actually have a better hand than you. And then if you don't entice them, they fold too much. So it's this kind of funny little in between, because the whole point of tournaments is to just make the most chips.
Would you ever, like, I don't know if this is a great question, but would you ever, like, if you have a good hand, would you ever not want the other players to know? Like, you don't want to raise a lot. You like raise a little, but like not to show. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say?
Deception's a big part of poker, yes.
Yeah, but like, I wouldn't get carried away with that, because sometimes by trying to be like deceptive, you end up putting yourself into more complicated, unfortunate spots.
I would say work on the fundamentals first before you too much about
right, for sure.
But
Yeah.
it's good to be aware that the people around you will generally not always be forthcoming.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's trying to make the most chips however they can, you know?
Right.
Exactly. And so I kind of just wanted to give you a little rundown. And occasionally you bluff, but like that's definitely more advanced. For now, you just gotta like kind of get in the poker game and play a little bit.
Yeah. I have another question that might not be such a great question, but when when do you decide, like when do you have to go all in? Like when do you decide to go all in?
When you're just kind of like getting to like you just start like not being able to call as much.
Okay.
Like or like basically like 15 big blinds, like when someone's like, you know, like raises and you just have like a good hand that you think you can raise. Yeah.
Like, do I have to go all in if like somebody raises but you don't have the money, like you don't have the, you know, the chips for it? Do you have to go all in?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Like if somebody raises before you, right? And you
Yeah.
have the chips to go to like call or raise, do you just go all in?
I mean, you can go all in if you want.
Or can you can just fold?
You can, yeah. You don't.
What he's asking is that like if somebody raises an amount that's more than your stack, do you have to go all in? If you choose to call, yeah, you'd be all in. But
Got it, because you can, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That makes sense. I understand. Okay.
There you go. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like that was another good session.
For sure.
And then on Thursday we'll figure out like like some like we'll actually go through some hands.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Alrighty. Thank
I
you
think
so
that
much.
should actually be the agenda. Is like we can get everyone set up on the Club GG app beforehand,
Mhm.
and then we'll like set a time that the game will start. Adam, something like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think we would just play some cash games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll just like set a time that we'll start playing. And I think we should definitely record it and then immediately review it as a group.
I agree.
That'd be awesome.
Love
Okay.
it.
Great.
Thank you so much, you guys. This was awesome again.
No worries. Appreciate you coming in and asking some good questions.
Yes, I'll be in that cub cavern.
All right.
Question.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys.
All right.
See you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.